I call to order the January 27th meeting of the Los Alamitos Planning Commission. Can I have a roll call, please?
Chair Riley,
Here.
Vice Chair Quilty,
Here.
Commissioner Andre,
Here.
Commissioner DeBolt is absent, Commissioner Gross,
Here.
Commissioner Lowe,
Here.
Commissioner Sofocanic is absent.
All right, would everyone please join me in the pledge of allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'm going to open the floor right now for oral communications. If there's anyone here that would like to speak on any item that's not on the agenda, this would be the time for you to come forward and do so. If it's something that's on the agenda, you'll have an opportunity to speak when we get to that item.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Josh Wilson. I'm the Chairman of the Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Arts Commission, and I have been tasked with giving the official Race on the Base Commission Challenge. If you guys remember for last year, it is the challenge given to every single city commission and to the city council on getting as many participants of the commission to either volunteer or race for Race on the Base, which is on February 27th. So the Parks Recreation Department, Parks Recreation Commission, we won last year, so we're defending champions. But how it works is you can either race in either the 5K, 10K, reverse triathlon. We also have a 1K kids run, I guess if your children want to do it. Or you can volunteer to help with the event, passing out water, medals, or even helping out the registration booth. So the event is on February 27th, and we also have a special event this year. It's February 26th. The night before will be a 1K kids glow-in-the-dark run. So that includes also a band for Knight Rider, if you guys are familiar with the 80s cover band. The information has been passed out with these flyers, so Director Mendoza has them and should have passed them out for you guys as well. Feel free to do it. And I was also asked by the Traffic Commission on what happens is if there is a tie, to which I made rules on the fly, and they said, well, that means the chair of each commission has to be run in one pair. And since I saw, I think, Chair Riley on the trails on Saturday running, well, we have some stiff competition if we do get a tie. So I look forward to seeing you guys out there, and once again, Race on the Base on Saturday, February 27th. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak on any item not on the agenda? All right, seeing no one come forward, I will close oral communications and we'll move on to item 5, Planning Commission reorganization. And I think at this point, I hand it over to you.
You do. Thank you very much, sir. With that, the chair will hand it over to the secretary, myself. The secretary will call for nominations for chairman of the commission for the next year. Don't everyone step back at once. And with that, it would take a motion and then a second, and then we'll take a roll call vote.
I'll nominate Commissioner Quilty for chair.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a first and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Chair Riley,
Yes.
Vice Chair Quilty,
Yes.
Commissioner Andre,
Yes.
Commissioner DeBolt is absent, Commissioner Gross,
Yes.
Commissioner Lowe,
Yes.
and Commissioner Sofocanic is absent. So that's 5 yeses, 0 noes, so congratulations.
Thank you.
You want to change it?
You could hardly wait, huh?
Now, I will turn it over to the chair, and the chair will host the next nominations for vice chair.
Okay, do we have any nominations for vice chair?
I'll nominate Commissioner Andretti.
Thank you. I second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a first. Do we do a roll call vote or just?
A roll call vote would be good.
Commissioner Riley,
Yes.
Chair Quilty,
Yes.
Commissioner Andre,
Yes.
Commissioner DeBolt is absent, Commissioner Gross,
Yes.
Commissioner Lowe,
Yes.
and Commissioner Sofocanic is absent. 5 yeses, 0 noes. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
You can change seats if you like, or you can just continue in the seats that you're in for the rest of the
We're
time.
fine.
Okay. So we're gonna apologize for us. We're gonna get titles messed up today. We all are. So, but we know who's chair and vice chair.
Okay, so with that, we'll move on to the approval of the minutes for the November 18th meeting. Do I have any motions?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Do you
I'll
have a
second.
Okay, we have a first and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Nobody opposed? There's nothing on the consent calendar. Right. And so we'll move on to item A, staff reports, resolution of intention 1601, recreation vehicles.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Staff will be giving a presentation. As you know, a resident approached the commission during the last meeting in December requesting a revision to the code. In order to revise the code, the commission has to make a decision whether they would like to look at the code, make revisions, and if so, you would have to adopt a resolution of intention. As you know, our recreational vehicles is a passionate issue in the city and is not to be taken lightly. For every person that would like a change in the code, there's probably a person who doesn't want a change in the code. So we would like to recommend, we're giving you an option in the recommendation that you adopt the resolution of intention, which directs staff to start a revision of the code, or send this actual case back to the city prosecutor so the city prosecutor can take a closer look to make sure staff is enforcing the code in its literal manner and as it was intended to do. I think that would be a fair step to do before you take on such a large task. To show you the passion level involved with these types of revisions, we've supplied you an old article from the newspaper of showing both sides of the coin and how it will fill up a council chamber. It becomes a passionate issue, and very few people are satisfied in the end. Before you take it on, I would like you to take a consideration of those factors and send this case actually to the city prosecutor. It actually won't be Lisa, it would be our city prosecutor who actually prosecutes the case. But Lisa and Ken know each other, so if they needed to consult, we would match them up for that. So that is staff's recommendation on that issue.
Okay, so do we have any questions for staff?
I had one question. I guess the question is with the issue at hand, the one that was brought to our attention, we saw that the photos and such. Has anything been done at this point to check and see if that particular case is in compliance or not, or have we not even gone that far?
We feel that they are in compliance when they're parked in the front yard, but there's been some doubts raised by the residents, so we want to make sure the city prosecutor is on the same side as staff before we go down this path.
Well-
We may end up revising it for no reason if we figure out that maybe staff might be misinterpreting the code.
I was having trouble, and I guess that's kind of where I'm going with it. I was having a little difficulty myself trying to interpret the code against the chart or table, if you will, and how it was established. So
Do you have that design up?
I guess that's where I was kind of heading with it, is it just seems to me much more appropriate because it is such a hot topic,
Yeah.
that it would seem much more appropriate since we have one instance or one complaint that we address that complaint before we, because I can't tell by this with a couple of the items here with the compliance, because it talks about being 5 feet away from the wall in an instance where it's on the side, but in the front, it says you can be in the front, but you have to have a wall that actually blocks it all the way, so it can't be more than 7 feet.
Right.
So that's impossible for a motorhome because every single motorhome is over 7 feet. So now I go back to, is that particular case, having it in front, 5 feet away from the wall? If it is, I think they're okay, although I still can't tell by this.
Correct. So
That's where it's so.
we want to send it to an impartial person or city prosecutor and have them take a look at it.
You know, for me, I think we can make this short. I'm for that before we do anything on this.
I agree that we need to go back to the city prosecutor.
Do you
This
wanna
is
make
such
a
a hot
motion?
topic. Yeah.
Madam Chair, you may want to open it up
Yeah,
for
get-
public comment before you.
Okay, well, we're going to open it up for public comment if anybody would like to speak on this item. Okay, seeing no one come forward, we'll close the public comment. Now we'll take motions.
I'll make a motion for it to be given to the prosecutor for review and then brought back to us.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a first and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, showing no one opposed. We will move on to item 9A, conditional use permit for medical dentist in CG on Los Alamitos Boulevard.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the commission. Tom and I will both be doing this one. I'll start it off, get into the details. This has been a request for medical use in the general commercial area. When you have a medical use, in this case a dentist in the general commercial area along an arterial in our city, you're required to get a CUP. The intent of getting the CUP is because you're intensifying the use. You're having a medical use where medical isn't normally expected or zoned for it, so there's usually an increase in parking needed. In this case, we've done a parking study. We've provided you some of our parking-related concerns, but there's still, during the last city council meeting, which simultaneously was the same time that this item was being drafted, there was a very passionate discussion about parking at the city council. So the city attorney and I agreed that maybe this item should be continued to take all of that into consideration and make sure we're tightening this up as much as we can in light of the hot topic that it is right now. And with that, we are recommending that you open the public hearing, take any testimony, because people have come to talk about it, and then keep the public hearing open, and we'll come back to you next month with a tighter recommendation on this item.
Okay, does anybody have any questions for staff? Okay, with that, we'll open up the public hearing. If you would like to speak on this matter, please sign in at the podium. Come on, Judy.
Okay, Judy Cleveau, owner of Green Street Interiors, going on 40 years here in the community. Love where I'm located. Last time I spoke to you people, it was to give my blessings for the restaurant, which is fine. I mean, I love Joe, I love the restaurant. In fact, he couldn't be here tonight, neither could Nisi from Print Masters. And I got in from Vegas about 2 hours ago, so I was the one elected to come and speak before. Please, please give this a lot of consideration. The parking situation, I mean, the restaurant, Joe, they're running a good operation. Everybody looks fine. Our parking is so bad that no less than 4 times I've gone out on an appointment, come back to my business, no parking on the street, no parking in the back lot, the front lot. I've had to go home. I've had clients call me and say, you know, I want to return some wallpaper books, or I'm coming by to pick up that lamp. Can you meet me in the parking lot? There's no place to park. For a small area, we are so impacted. We've got a beauty salon, a nail salon, a spa, a gym, and now the restaurant. And I mean, personally, I just need a little bit if I had 2 spots. So it's not like I've got 10 employees and each employee is working on a client that used 10 or 20. And I know that if a dentist office goes in, you're going to have a dentist, you're going to have a chair side, you're going to have a hygienist, you're going to have a receptionist, you're going to have probably an insurance person. That's the minimum 5. And if you've ever been in a dentist office, they don't wait between patients, you know, for one to leave and another one to come and take the parking spot. They're overlapping, and I just think this will be the biggest nightmare. And the fact that, you know, the city does depend on sales tax, and I think that you're going to be running a lot of retail business out, because if you can't park, you know, clients just will move on someplace else. And please consider it. You know, I love my landlords. I hate the parking situation. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who'd like to speak? Okay, with that, we'll keep the public hearing open and come back. Does anybody else have any comments?
I have one. I was just wondering if Judy or any or staff, if anybody has heard from the property owner if they have any comments or thoughts on the parking situation, since they rely on your lease money to operate that facility, if that property. Do you have any conversations with him about who they're leasing to and who's going to be occupying it, or does that have not come up? You said you liked him. Yeah, I don't know if I can ask you.
Our landlord, Sandy, was here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there she is.
I was just wondering about the property owner. What do they have to say about that? I mean, they're the ones that are doing this lease and creating this situation. So.
My name is Sandy Yavitz, and I'm one of the owners of the property. Wasn't expecting to speak tonight. I just came to listen to testimony. We did do a parking analysis. I would like staff to analyze that, and I would ask the commission to look at it based on a dentist use. We can lease the space to other users that are a matter of right, that would be much more parking intensive. And we're trying to be sensitive to the tenants, and we do not think that a dentist office is a parking intensive use when you look at the hours in the parking study where there is intensity in the parking lot. So I appreciate staff continuing this to look at it, and we'll be happy to come and address any of your questions next month after you've had an opportunity to look at the parking study too.
Okay, thanks.
Do we know what was in that space prior to the dental
Kumon Learning
Kumon?
Center.
learning center? Okay.
Yeah, Kumon Learning Center went over to Vaughn's.
Mhm.
As part of the parking study, were the spaces measured? Because I know when I go over there and I have a little car, if there are two SUVs, that spot in the middle, I can't even fit my car in. It doesn't seem like they're the legal width.
The middle ones were legal at the time. We've seen the old site plan, so when the place was built, those met the code at the time. Since then, they do not meet the regulation 9-foot width.
9 by 19.
They certainly aren't the 9-foot width anymore. Yeah, and I think that's noted in the parking report that was done and analyzed by our staff. Ruth, our traffic engineer, has analyzed that and provided comments to that fact.
Can I speak to that?
Yeah.
I was going to say with those center spots, I've also witnessed people get into a verbal fight over that when a car pulls into one of those spots and the other person said, I can't even get out of my car. But the car next to him is within 2 spots. And then we also have another situation, like in front of my store, we've got a couple spots. But if a truck comes in there, which it does quite often, or an SUV, and some of them have a trailer hitch, right there. I mean, I know you can't monitor that, but that wipes out 2 spots. And it's just really a very, very rough situation.
Do you have another question?
I'm trying to think of what, of anything. I mean, it appears that the parking is so bad that anything that goes into that space is going to create an issue, unless you have something that's non-retail and it's an office space with one person in it. I mean, that being a retail shopping center, I find it hard that anything that goes in there won't create the same additional issues.
Is the dentist here tonight?
No, the dentist isn't the applicant. The property owner is the applicant on behalf of the dentist.
Okay. Do we know what type of dentistry he does? Does he do oral surgery? Does he use nitrous oxide?
General.
General. Do you know if he uses nitrous oxide?
I don't think we have that level of detail.
Laughing gas.
He will be at the hearing
Okay.
next month. We can, check our time.
Okay. I would.
Do we need a motion to continue it?
A motion and a second.
I'll make a motion to continue.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, with that, we'll move on to item
Oh, I'm
9.
sorry, that we need to continue that to a date and time certain. Is that to the next meeting in
Okay.
February?
We will continue that to our next meeting on February 24th. Okay, now we'll move on to item 9B, conditional use permit, the restaurant with outside seating area.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is, in some sense, a similar case. The reason they are required to apply for a CUP is because they want to have outside dining. They want to improve the visibility and activity outside of a restaurant that is now vacant. They've ran the restaurant as one concept, and now they have another concept to consider, but they want to show a little life going on at the restaurant. And I think the Commission's always been supportive of outside dining. That is an intensification of use. They're adding more floor area. It's about 1,100 square feet of outside dining. They have reconfigured the inside to have less seating on the inside, and you'll see some of those calculations in the staff report. He has had some challenges in finding some alternatives to parking. He has entered into a relationship with a neighboring office building to provide parking at some peak times, like evening and weekends. And so with that and the option of valet and some new things that are happening with Uber these days, he's hoping to get some consideration from the Commission for some parking flexibility with that. Again, in light of the recent City Council meeting where parking issue was a 2.5-hour conversation, maybe? 2.5-hour conversation. The city attorney wants to take a closer look at this application as well. And then also there's some things that staff may have not done regarding landscaping, and Lisa wanted to tighten those up. The applicant is in the audience today, Mr. Craig Hoffman. There's also a neighboring commercial property owner that I think would like to address the Commission. And then after that, we would recommend a continuation of this item to a later date, giving Lisa and I some time to tighten this up in light of the passion that was drawn at the City Council meeting regarding parking.
Actually, in this case, I think City Attorney's Office is going to request that this be renoticed and be more clear as to what's being requested in terms of the parking situation. I missed that when the public hearing notices were sent for review. And given the passionate level of that council meeting, we want to make sure that everybody has adequate notice of this issue.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions for staff? Okay, with that, we'll open up the public hearing if anybody would like to come forward.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Craig Hoffman. I own Hoffman Hospitality Group, which also owns Hoff's Hut, which has been in the city of Los Alamitos for over 20 years. I think staff did adequately addressed our issues, and we do have a visibility issue. I think that's one of the reasons the restaurant failed before. People drive by the restaurant and can't see that it is a restaurant other than just signage. And by having some outdoor dining and seeing umbrellas out there and people dining, we think it'll be very inviting for customers to stop. I think we've addressed the parking issues fairly well by renting additional spaces during peak periods, nighttime and weekends. I mean, just left there tonight. There were very few cars parked in the parking lot. I think what we did out in front, there used to be some spaces in front of the restaurant, and we closed that up. So there are now more spaces on the street, probably 3 spaces there now that customers can park. We want to reopen the restaurant, but we want to open it and make sure that we can stay open and be successful in the city of Los Alamitos. As far as the landscaping issue, I think we've really improved what was there before. It was just hardscape and some handicap parking. Most of the landscaping will stay, and where there is a wall, there'll be landscaping in front of it. The mature trees will stay. So I don't think that we're changing the landscaping in any way that would be a detriment to the building. So unless you have any questions, that's kind of my comments regarding the proposed outdoor patio.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who'd like to speak?
My name is Mary Herrera, and my family has the building right next door, RNH building at 11140. And first of all, I'd like to say I am for the outside. I think that is going to help. I think it's a nice building the way it looks. But my issue, and like I just spoke to Mr. Hoffman, is the parking. We have quite a bit of parking, as Judy probably knows. She was once there. We do. We have a lot of parking, but we also have our tenants, and their concern is their customers that are coming, that they don't want to have to see someone park in our parking lot and have to shoo them away. When Spin was open at the beginning, I did have issues with me having to drive by there, seeing a lot of people parking in my parking lot, and politely I would go and I'd say, you know, I'm really sorry, but, you know, this is not, well, that's the last thing somebody wants to hear. Well, there's no signs. I said, yes, there's plenty of signs. We have signs. And I suggested maybe that would be somewhat of a help if they put signs out where their parking is. And I know that in the front, on the street, like he said, maybe I would suggest that right now, right in front of our building, there's, I believe, green, where it's 20 minutes. Maybe change that back so that it's not 20 minutes any longer, and maybe that would help him a little bit, too, with more parking. But anyway, that's my issue, is obviously the parking. So I would really like for you to take a look at that. I'm excited, my tenants are excited, their customers are excited to have them reopen. I think it's a great idea, but the issue being the parking. So if we can work it out somehow, and which, again, like you said, I know parking in Los Alamitos has always been the issue. But I just don't like to be the policeman out there having to shoo people away. And then my tenants get upset because, you know, people are parking, because we have signs, but people don't read the signs. And I don't want to tow. I think I've towed one person in the last 20 years, and that was only because they left their truck there for 2 months. So I don't like to do that. But anyway, that's what I'm here for.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak? Okay, with that, we'll keep the public hearing open and bring it back to the commission.
Actually, you can close this one
Oh,
because
we
we're
can
going to
close
renotice it for some additional things.
Okay, then we'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the commission.
Need a motion?
Do we need to continue?
I'll make
We're
a
not
motion.
continuing it.
No.
Oh, we're not.
Because we have to renotice it. So
Okay.
it's just going to be placed on a future agenda.
So we don't have to do anything?
Yeah, we'll be back next month.
Okay.
Okay, so we just move on?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, we'll move on to item 9C, site plan review, second residence to be constructed on a parcel with an existing residence.
Chair Quilty and Planning Commissioners, the site plan review 1504 is an application for an addition to a multi-family property that has one house on it right now. They'd like to add a second house. And this is in the apartment row area at 4292 Green Avenue. And the applicant is here with us tonight if you have questions for him, Jason Hickox. And the existing property is a 2-bedroom, 1-story, single-family house with a detached garage. What they're going to put there is a 2-story house behind that, and then just demolish the garage that's there and build a garage under the new 2-story house and one behind that as well for the people in the front. And basically, staff does support this application. If you have any particular questions about, you know, the way it looks or anything like that, it's over there. But staff has recommended that they use craftsman-style windows with mullions in them rather than just glass, and to put trim around the windows. And those are conditioned in the report, in the resolution. So with that, we do support the application, and give the podium back to you.
Does anybody have any questions for staff? Okay, we'll open up the public hearing. That you'd like to come up and speak on the project?
Awesome. Do you want me to sign in?
Please.
All right. My name is Jay Crawford, and I'm the architect on the project. And we have no problems with the general conditions. That are stated on there. The owner spoke with somebody in the city today about the utilities coming in underground, and he was informed that they can probably go in overhead or stay overhead like they are. I don't know if that's true, but...
Yes, we
okay?
did talk about
Okay.
that if you would like to, they do not have to underground the utilities as one of the conditions. So the city engineer told me that today, so...
Is that currently a condition, Tom?
Yes, it is.
So
The underground utilities, it's under the engineering section.
The second drawing on the top there, am I looking at two-car garages?
Yeah, there's two-car garages, but let me see the one's right here.
Yeah, right.
And the other one's back here, so they're all set.
Oh, they're up.
Yeah, it looks like there's a good-
It did, yeah, that's what, okay.
So it's about 37 feet, no, not that much, about 35 feet.
There.
And is that area that's marked as a workshop, is that like a future rental unit? Because it looks big and it's got a bathroom in it.
No, it's a workshop for Jason's dad, who works on cars and stuff.
I already have one right now in the old garage. I have a bathroom in the back of the garage, it's all built in, shower, a washroom, everything. My garage is 28 feet deep
Oh, wow.
from 1948.
Yeah. So yeah, he wants to do his car thing in there, and
Got it.
so that's what that's all about. Yeah.
Okay.
What kind of car thing?
Well, just dabble with little old cars.
How old?
I have 65 convertible Corvair and a Lancia, an Italian car. Dabble, I still call them old cars.
I have older than that, that's why I'm at.
Do you have any other questions for the architect? I think we're good. Does anybody else want to speak on this? Okay, with that, we'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the commission.
When I did a drive-by, you had two nice tall buildings and this poor little guy that's a single story. So I think this is going to be actually a rather nice asset to the area. I think it'll look good. I don't really have any qualms with it. I thought it was, everything there looked fine. You're going to keep the same block wall fence and things? No.
Let me just speak to that. There's a condition there about the safety triangle, and I'm going to speak with planning. I'll go up there next week and meet with them, but I think we'll probably move the fence back even to the garage, and I think that'll solve those issues. Okay. By the way, I forgot to say this. Your planning department is amazing. I work with a lot of cities in Southern California right now. They're here, and you guys are way up there. Easy to work with. They turn your calls. There's a novel concept. Just have been a delight and helped us work out issues and problems. So you got a good group here. I mean, it's rare. You guys don't understand. This is unreal. I wish all my jobs were here.
Keep them coming. We have some property that's available. We have more cookies from our planning people.
I'll say. I'm just wondering what staff's thoughts are on underground utilities versus above ground utilities. I know that usually when you go and do new construction, they make you do it underground. I think most cities are that way. I just wondered what our thoughts were on that. And I know that sometimes down the alleyway they're doing underground utilities, and that's not a standard, obviously, here to do that.
Is there a utility pole on the property?
What's that? No? No.
No, I think, yeah, it's across the alley.
Oh, okay.
So it was a standard condition they put in there.
Right.
Without going to the property, so he, after being questioned, they said it's okay to remove it.
Okay.
He can't have wires going from units to units, that violates state's building code, that'll be taken care of.
Okay. I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second it.
Can you clarify as to what you're doing with the condition in that motion on the undergrounding?
So we're going to strike that condition to do underground utilities from the pole to the property. We'll strike that condition. Along with that, I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, motion approved. Congratulations. With that, moving right along to 9D, zoning ordinance amendment, non-conforming use provisions for the third month in a row, I believe. Fourth?
I'm not sure, I'm not keeping track.
Hopefully, we've incorporated all of the changes that the commission directed that we make at the last meeting. If that is the case, it wasn't agendized for adoption tonight. It will come back at the next meeting. We did have our environmental consultant take a look at it. He has determined that a notice of exemption would be appropriate for this one. That was one thing we had wanted to make sure of. And he's comfortable that this can go on a notice of exemption, so those findings will be incorporated into the resolution that will be in next time for you to recommend adoption. If the commission has any further questions on this or wants any further changes, we're still open for business here after, I think this is the fourth meeting.
Yeah.
Okay, do we have any questions for staff? Okay, we'll open up the public hearing. Would you like to speak? Okay. We'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the commission.
Actually, we want to
Oh, we're going to keep the, sorry, we're going to keep the
it open for
hearing
final
Okay.
hearing in February.
Okay.
But it will come back in this final form with the appropriate findings. And
Okay.
I think the only issue was the continuation of legal non-conforming lots. We did address it in the draft that you can build on it. You just can't intensify the nonconformity. So that will come back next time.
Well, Art's not here with his list, so who's going to take over for Art?
That was my comment.
Or Art, we pick on him.
We're on 9E. And
9D.
no, D? Didn't we just do D?
D's non-conforming use.
Right. And that will be continued to the next meeting. There's no motion or
Oh,
anything.
oh, so we just.
So Art will
that.
have another
Oh,
bite at
perfect.
the apple.
Well, it doesn't have the findings yet in it regarding the notice of exemption. The resolution for you to adopt to move it forward wasn't included, and next time it will be on the agenda with recommendation to actually approve and approve the notice of exemption. There's been case law that the CEQA has to be on your Brown Act, on your agenda as well, the action you're going to take, or it's a violation of the Brown Act to not list every item. And yes, that went to court, and there's a published decision. We didn't know Art wasn't going to be here.
I'm just trying to figure out how ours is pages and pages, and where they got this done in 2 paragraphs.
No, that's just lots.
Yeah.
I was like, that's pretty good.
There are some cities that have a great ability to simplify, but then sometimes leaves it open for interpretation.
And remember, your pages and pages is also because you've got pages of the strikeout.
I know, right.
Just,
Yeah.
and that was included just so you could have a frame of reference to read back of what the code previously said. I sometimes find that helpful. Which, moving on to the next item, is why you all have on your desk a new copy of the limited industrial ordinance that is actually redlined, and we apologize for the redline copy not getting into your packet. So we're ready to go on to that item.
Okay, with that, we're going to item number E. You guys are moving along swimmingly today. We're very impressed. This is zoning ordinance amendment 15-09. This started with the general plan, if you remember. We had a vision to create an area where these kind of uses were near more like uses. Where a girls' gymnastics studio could be near an archery clinic or a batting cage, and those kind of uses, or a CrossFit. And so with that, we brought that code amendment to you. It's before you tonight. It's not ready for adoption because we wanted to make sure you're okay with it. And hopefully you've read the ordinance. And then, as Lisa said, she placed another version of the ordinance on your desk that has a red line for you to see what kind of uses we're allowing conditionally and by right, so you could really kind of put your stamp of approval on there. And we'll come back to you with a recommendation if it's all neatly wrapped up for you.
And part of this was just redefining the terms so they seem to make more sense rather than having businesses fall into multiple categories. I tried to reclassify, and something that made more sense to me, it may not necessarily make more sense to anybody else, because sometimes I get myself all wrapped up in this.
But in the new table, you'll see all the way to the right is LI. That's a limited industrial area, also known as the commercial recreation area. That's the area where people can seek out to lease space where they could operate this type of businesses. And therefore, the remainder of the industrial area will no longer support these kind of uses.
So we're talking about expanding that zone.
No, you're talking about...
You're actually creating a new zone and contracting where the uses go.
Yeah, in the general plan, you created this layout. The crosshatched area, you created this layout. So now is the time to rezone the property accordingly, and then in rezoning those parcels to allow these kind of quasi-commercial recreation uses, you're also establishing what uses you want to be allowed in there.
And are we talking about just this area right now?
Well, you're talking about the intent allowing more commercial recreation uses in these shaded areas, and then not allowing them in the rest of the industrial area.
Okay.
So it deals with the entire industrial area in a different way. It strips the commercial use from the whole industrial area and moves them only to this crosshatched area. Does that make sense?
I thought they already weren't allowed in those other areas
Well, that's what you've been allowing in piece by
with CUPs.
piece.
Right.
And it's still CUP.
Right.
They're still going to be required by CUP. But sometimes it was, well, we allow a school in there.
Well, we're in a
and
better
it's
position
the school.
to say no.
Now
if we can
it
say,
is-
well, there's a place
no.
for that, you can
Now
go
it
have
is
it there.
just, it's not even with a CUP. They won't be able to go there at all in your regular PM zone. They're essentially forbidden now. That's what you did with the general plan. You took them out of the PM
So they
zone.
can't even go in with a CUP,
No,
as it stands now.
no,
Industrial area
once
Y.
you adopt this.
And in the crosshatched area,
They could.
But that doesn't affect any of the existing uses. those-
They're all going to be non-conforming, that, as you've determined in the ordinance, they don't expire.
and the idea around it was then the city could start improving the area that has these concentrations in them to address the drop-off zones. You've already seen one property owner on where Kidnastics is. He's put in new signage. He's going to do an outdoor lunch area in between the buildings where the loading dock was. he's really exploiting this activity for his property. He sees it as a hot commodity in the future as potential rental income for himself.
Right.
But there's some public improvements we'd like to do. You know how we do public improvements for Ganal, we did that concrete crossing. We'd like to do some public improvements in this area. So once this is done, we'll start addressing that in the capital improvement plan over the next 7 years.
What is the advantage to not allowing a CUP for a business? I mean, we're limited with space, right? So if that type of a business wants to come in, and they're limited to just the crosshatched areas, but those are all obviously occupied, they're basically, there's nowhere else for them.
Big commercial.
They can also go to the commercial area.
Okay.
Yeah. So they have a large area, except for the commercial area often costs more to rent than the industrial area does.
Right.
And what this does is allows them to be in the industrial area, which maybe the prices will rise after this, but you never know.
Good.
Yeah.
Another thing is compatibility. We were having applicants apply for things near places where trucks were waiting to unload and upload, and we just didn't see it compatible and safe for kids.
Right.
I think the best example we had was on the corner of Catalina and Kyle. Is that it?
Yeah.
On Catalina and Kyle, where that Deaf Touch Soccer is.
Right.
Across the street, another place wanted to be, and you know that corner just isn't the best corner. So before you go back to the commission, these guys had to really address that issue. And they just couldn't find a way to be supportive of it because of the incompatibility with kind of the grittier uses that were near it. You had trend offset printing, you had trucking, you had tow facilities. Just wasn't a place to drop off kids.
Right.
So we, instead of trying to address and make the industrial area adjust to the kids in the area, it was better to establish an area for those kids where it would be more compatible in the future. And then there's only so much industrial land you can be recommended uses before you lose your employment centers.
That's right.
Anaheim's going through that, and some of the other cities that are going through that. So you don't want too much of your land, your industrial land, to be taken up by those uses.
Right.
I think
So that's
eliminating the CUP option in those areas also,
Yeah.
you don't have to have people come in and say, well, you let these other people do it, why won't you let me do it? We're kind of setting that standard, and here it is. I mean, I've been on this commission for a long time. Everybody up here, we're all good people, and people pull on your heartstrings, and we want to try and do the right thing by these applicants. And sometimes it's hard to say no. They've got these great businesses, they have a lot of great ideas, they want to do good things for the community, we want to support those businesses in the community, and we end up approving things that, in my opinion, we shouldn't be approving in some cases. And in my years on the commission, that's become more and more apparent to me, and I think this just kind of takes some of
Well,
that
in
out of the
some
equation.
instances that, but you could put the shoe on the other foot and say that, you know, some of these that have been approved are successful and are working, even though they're in the zone that maybe they're not supposed to be in. I mean, if you take a look at some type of, like a Kidnastics or something like that, I mean, an industrial building is actually kind of more of a prime structure than what you would find in a commercially zoned area in some instances. Take an inline hockey rink, for instance. You know, you find a large industrial building, that is really truly what you need in order to make that work versus a commercial building. So to a certain degree, you almost again are kind of limiting what the possibility is for success in the area by saying you can't do a CUP or
Sure.
something like that, because there are certain businesses that actually kind of require that type of a facility.
Well, and I agree that some of the buildings may be more appropriate, but that doesn't mean that the surrounding areas, the streets.
Not always.
Things like that are always appropriate. And that's where we've run into problems, is like putting a deaf touch soccer in a place that's, has pretty heavy, you know,
Right.
industrial
Swim
usage
school.
going on, and they're,
Swim school was a struggle.
right? But putting those uses in an area where maybe they shouldn't be for other reasons.
But almost-
It's hard, because
I
you want
almost
to.
feel like it would be more appropriate to be able to say, we can't do that for these reasons versus, you know, we can't do it at all. Because maybe there's another spot that it would have worked, but maybe that just wasn't the spot. But it could have worked maybe in another industrial area per se. So,
Right.
but, and now we limit that by
But just because something works in an industrial area today, doesn't mean it's going to fit there 5 years from now. The industrial tenants by right can change. Those uses can intensify with the zone by right.
Well,
And
I
something-
kind of short circuit this because when you adopted the general plan specifically states commercial recreational uses are not permitted in the planned industrial general plan category, which parallels, of course, the PM zone. So if you want to go back and rethink that a CUP would be allowed for the commercial recreational uses there, we have to go back and amend the whole general plan land use element on that point, because it was very clearly decided back then.
That takes care of that
to-
next.
I just thought I'd kind of short-circuit the
No, you know what, no,
discussion.
I appreciate it because I wasn't part of
No, I
that,
know,
so,
and that's why I went back to pull it up and double-check that my memory was
Perfect.
correct before I stated that, so.
Yeah, because I think when you said that this would trigger that, I think that's where we were going. So-
Yeah.
But Commissioner Riley's correct. We wanted to, we didn't want to say we didn't want you in our town.
Right.
We just wanted to create a compatible zone where they would feel comfortable next to their neighbor.
Mhm.
They didn't have someone spewing out sawdust. They didn't have trucks going 24 hours
Correct.
waiting for the business to open to drop off their trucks.
Mhm.
And you have these parents with kids staring at the truckers, and the truckers are sleeping in their cabins. And we, Tom and I have heard all these stories for 8 years of Humboldt and all blocking driveways and these non-compatible uses next to each other. And we just needed to stop, and we also needed to give the commission the tools to stop it.
Right.
So now you say, I'm sorry, it's incompatible with the general plan and the zoning code.
And there are spots in the commercial area that have opened up in the past that are perfect for it, like Grateful Hearts, where they're at now. Could have been some kind of workout center place.
Oh, sure.
And that we pushed that for years as a great place for people to go, and they've chosen not to rent that because it costs so much.
Right.
So.
Right.
Even though, sometimes in the recreation area, in the commercial area, there are places that are also fitting
Absolutely.
for it, but, yeah.
Just very quick, on the one that we talked about, that right across from the death, okay.
Oh, right.
That was a real hard decision, because this was a really nice applicant, a very good person.
Oh, he brought 100 people with him to support him.
Yeah,
Wow.
but it was a very difficult, but the safety issue was there, and that is what really triggers this type of
Sure.
place, and that would have been much safer for what he was doing, and that's what got him turned down. It just wasn't safe,
Yeah.
not for the kids coming there, and it was, especially you got a hospital right there, that's where the ambulance come through.
Right.
So it wasn't a good fit, and that's what's triggered a lot of this.
So
But a nice person.
Good to know.
the action on this one would be to continue the public hearing, and it will come back with the resolutions and
Okay, we'll continue the public hearing until February 24th. Okay, that was 9E. Moving on to 9F, zoning ordinance amendment, vacant lots and buildings.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We're moving along swimmingly. As you know, this staff brought this before you, and you adopted a resolution of intention giving us permission to start looking at our zoning code in light of vacant lots that are in city and potential vacant buildings, and ways to maintain them or even improve them, and have a required development standard for vacant lots, including fencing, landscaping, so everything have to look the way they do. As you know, there's one vacant lot that's been in the city for years, and I wish I would have had this code years ago or something like it to enforce a landscape strip around it and to beautify something that people pass every day in our city. We expect it of property owners that have buildings, we should expect it of property owners that don't have buildings. So Tom is taking a shot at drafting it using some other cities' codes. It's not ready for approval today, but we've drafted some things in our code that are up for your consideration. And Tom, is that 3A? Is that where we start, on page 3 of 6 of the ordinance?
Let's see here.
So all
No,
vacant
page
lots
2
will
of
be
6.
improved, yeah. In the ordinance, page 3 of 6,
Oh, which number is it?
it's 3A.
3A.
Is everyone there? Page 3 of 6 of ZOA 15-10, 3A. A 5-foot wide landscape buffer be maintained along the perimeter of a vacant lot between all sidewalks, streets, alleys, and other public right-of-ways, and the fence required by the subsection below. So we're requiring that you have landscaping, then the fence. In the old days, we probably would have required a landscape grass berm, but that doesn't work in the drought era that we're in today. So all landscaping shall be drought tolerant, shall meet the requirements of all city and state laws regarding drought tolerant landscaping. Landscaping shall consist of a combination of trees, shrubs, and ground cover. Such landscape material must maintain a minimum height of 2 feet. If necessary for stormwater runoff control, the city may require that the remainder of the property be covered with a permeable material that is suitable for the development by myself. Any improved vacant lot must also maintain all existing on-site landscaping and irrigation in good condition. You can't just plant it and leave it.
Yeah.
Okay, and then we talk about fencing. And certainly this is up for discussion. There are some fencing that's more expensive than others, and I'm sure the commission might be sensitive to somebody having to put hundreds of feet of fencing on a property. So our first shot at this included the fencing shall have a gate to allow for maintenance. The gate shall be an open design. It's to allow the view from the property behind the gate. And the fencing shall be constructed of tubular steel, vinyl, wood, or other such durable materials as approved by myself. Barbed wire, chain link, and plywood fencing are not allowed. Fence shall not exceed the allowable height, so I think that's 7 feet, right, Tom?
Yes.
The placard shall be visible posted on the fence containing the name of the property owner or authorized representative, so we know who to call in the event it's not being maintained, and the public does as well. And no advertising signs or banners may be hung on the fence other than the sale of the property or for the required owner information placards. And that's pretty much the meat of it, and then there's general requirements in there. So that's where we're leaning, and those are our suggestions thus far. We're not sure if your ideas would be to go a little bit further than this. We're certainly here to take your input, and then whatever input we get tonight, we'll wrap up in a resolution and an ordinance for you for next meeting. This is a public hearing, and we would recommend opening the public hearing and then continuing it to the next meeting.
Okay, we'll open the public hearing. Would you like to speak on this matter?
No, but I think it's quite nice.
Okay, then we'll keep the public hearing open and bring it back to the commission.
How do we handle pests on this, like gophers and that might create problems?
There's other sections of the code that require maintenance for that kind of thing. We still have.
Public nuisance
Yeah, public
ordinance
nuisance, when it
prevents
gets out of hand.
rodents and things like that.
You're not allowed to let your property get deteriorated even by termites. There's already sections of the code that deal with that.
What about that lot on Los Al Boulevard and Spring, the high school
Cerritos,
corner?
yeah.
That's owned by gas company.
It's
Texaco,
it's owned
Chevron.
technically by the gas company, but somebody's had it in escrow for about 22 years. He's held it in escrow and has the option on it. And he pays to keep that.
Well, I know they
22
had,
years.
they were cleaning it up for a while because they had some equipment on there, and that equipment appears to be gone now, right?
It is still under remediation. It doesn't have a clearance letter yet.
Okay, do we know what the time frame is on that?
That is endless.
Do we have the ability to
Is it contaminated?
make them expedite that?
Not really. I mean, from a blight point of view, the soil being blighted, they have a plan that's accepted by the Orange County Water Board, and they have agreed upon that plan, and we just rely upon the Water Board to enforce that.
Okay. What about, who put the banner on there, the high school banner?
Some volunteers.
But who paid for it, that
I
banner?
think volunteers.
So how would this affect that with the no advertising signs or banners maybe hung on the fence?
It wouldn't allow it.
They would actually have to landscape and put a new fence further back, right?
Correct. The owner would, not the
Maybe
high
that
school.
would expedite the doing something with the property. You'd actually have to do something with it.
Yeah.
There's not a toxic problem in the soil or anything, is there?
Is that a
I
build?
would think
is that
there'd have to be,
Yeah,
with
so-
a gas
so
station.
that lot's not buildable until that's remediated.
Without giving out too much information on camera, the entire intersection's had that issue over the years. There's remediation equipment, and it's well known behind Sizzler. There was remediation equipment behind El Pollo Loco until recently. They have their clearance.
They remediated.
They-
Pulled the soil out, and filled it up with concrete, so.
And then you still have the remediation going on the vacant lot.
So if
Are
we
there-
want
are there
them
gas
to,
stations all over the place there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
so we wanted to push the fence back there to
Mhm.
meet this code,
Yep.
is that going to create a problem with the soil in that?
Having access to it?
No, them having to put in plants or stuff like that, is it going to create a problem that might be,
It might. I mean, it
What?
might.
Like
People
what,
having
like
access
soil?
to it.
What do you think?
Do you mean digging the soil would release toxins?
The plants will probably have
Yeah,
a nice
kids.
glow at night.
yes.
Without
Or the
lighting.
mud run.
Yeah,
Some-
there may be some concerns there, Lisa.
I
yeah.
think
They could get a variance, but maybe we come up with some sort of administrative variance for something
You know-
They know it's
administrative.
gonna try to go for
Well-
a variance, obviously. No one wants to do this.
Well, I
on a
think
vacant
it would,
lot.
is this on a Cortese site? Is it listed on the Cortese site? Yeah.
That site comes up in particular just because it's been an eyesore for years.
Yeah.
They put that banner on it, and at least it's
Covered.
looks better.
Yeah.
It's covered. They replace it, relatively
It's not a bunch
frequently.
of,
Yeah, and
a bunch
it-
of individual signage, at least
Right.
one.
Right.
You can't distinguish, though. I mean, actually, technically, I just relooked at this, that we require the identifying information. I don't think that's a sign, because we're requiring
Correct.
that, but you can't say, we can allow a school banner,
Right.
and we can,
That's why I'm
Right.
just kind of
and not
asking for
then
clarification.
throw on a church banner or a support.
Right.
My
Whatever.
concern is that if you do pull that off, and it's in that, most of the time I would agree, if you have 27 different banners against the, all different stuff, it becomes almost like littered, but at least with that, it's covering the eyesore in one, fell swoop, and it's clean, and so the other side of that is you pull it off, and now it looks really
Right,
And
but
if
isn't
the,
it what
Can we
this
call it
says, is
something
that they'd
else?
have to landscape
Well,
and
they-
put a fence?
Yeah, they would, but that's what we're saying, if there's an issue with the soil, they might not.
Say a
well-
fence line here?
But so wouldn't
Yeah,
that be the
well,
owner's
we do require that
Right,
as
but-
part of this, either fence screen or the slats put through it,
If we
but,
can call that a screen, I mean, let's find a different way to call it then, if you want to kind of allow it. Is that
Well,
what?
I-
allow
Don't
what?
you want to clean up that lot too? It looks
I'd rather have it
looks
cleaned,
Is,
yeah.
terrible.
is the intent of the fence to be see-through or to be something that's not see-through? It says the gate needs to be see-through, but not.
Right now, that's,
Left.
it's left to the
I mean, or you
discretion in
have
this.
like a nice 5-foot section of landscaping and then a fence and a bunch of crap behind it.
Let's talk about it. Since we're ahead of the schedule tonight, let's, relax a little bit and talk about what is best for those two particular lots. Because that really is what it's about in our town. There's a couple of residential lots. But do you want to see inside of a lot that's not maintained? Do you want someone to hide behind a fence that you can't see behind? Those kind of issues regarding fencing. Do you like the lots of Alamitos High School screening on the fence? Do you like that kind of wrap on the fence?
Well,
It's beautiful.
yeah,
It says,
when they put it on there and it's new, it's really nice.
Yeah, they recently redid it, so it's nice. Before it was kind of faded and getting a little ratty,
Yeah, but they replaced it before it got
True.
really abused, right? Which I thought was great. And I think ideally I'd like to see something happen on that lot and have it not just be I mean, it's on a great, there's a lot of potential on that corner, but it's an eyesore, so something is better than nothing. So when they first put that banner on there, I was like, wow, well, that's cool. It's got the school spirit. It's placed appropriately, right? It's right there where the high school is. And it looks a heck of a lot better than the way the lot looked before. So
Right,
I was glad to see
definitely.
it.
Is professionally done, is quality work, and so you have this kind of, you don't want to create a double standard, but the other issue is that I don't know pushing the fence back on that property. I'm concerned about what it could do harm-wise. You have kids there all the time. I don't want to create a problem for any of them or health hazard. And yet, we have something that looks very nice, and whatever their issue is inside there, yeah, I'd like to see it resolved, but I don't think we can do that. I think that's whatever's going on. 22 years in escrow, if they haven't figured out how to get out of it yet, it'd be another 22 there.
But in some
Well,
sense,
there's
it-
no incentive for them to sell, obviously.
Well,
I mean,
you're not paying
It's a
for
small
anything.
site, and it
When you're not investing
hardly
in anything on a monthly basis,
Yeah.
Right.
it's easy to keep.
Yeah.
I think something like this could be a motivator, because
Right.
if we say, hey, you have to push it back and put a fence 5 feet back, and you have to landscape that front, that means maybe they're going to have to excavate that soil. Maybe they're going to have to do some sort of remediation on that to meet code, and maybe that's going to be a motivation for them
Right,
to
'cause
actually think about what they're doing with that property.
if we did put it in, I mean, and they do have to do the 5 feet of landscaping, I'm assuming that they can't just do it on, bad soil. That they would, whoever, whatever agency would go after a site like that,
Well, what we can do, place something in the code unless not allowed by a state
Un-
environmental agency.
Unremediated polluted lots,
Yeah.
something about that.
And we could also, try to permit maybe a mesh screening to the liking of the community development.
You gotta
That's
shake
what
Yeah,
you're
that
talking
part
about.
is,
Do you like the mesh screening? Do you want someone to be able to do this?
I would rather
That's
have
not
them do
mesh.
something with the lot.
Yeah,
And,
I think we would.
Back to the remediation real quick. Have they done any at
Yeah.
all on that?
Yes.
There's been remediation.
There's
Yeah, for years.
pipes that have been coming up out of the ground to just vent it off for.
They used to have a contraption there doing
Right.
something, and I noticed that's gone now,
Right.
so.
It's
Are there
just
tanks
pipes.
are there tanks underneath?
No, there-
Tanks are required to come out after 1984.
So there are no tanks, but they have a collection. Do they have like a collection point down there in somewhere?
yeah, well, what it is well, I'm not going to be an expert on that, I guess. Probably
It's
should
the
do.
water board that's
I'm gonna
involved,
stop.
not
Okay.
the soil pollution.
Well, the only reason I'm asking, because of what I'm involved in for my work, there are companies out there that actually go out specifically where they're having gas stations. And in fact, I think that's what they did over around El Pollo Loco, but they basically pull the water up, from underground, and they run it through this contraption on the back of a truck that basically turns it and evaporates it they can release it into the air.
Right.
And then that's what they do. So I'm just wondering if there's a way that it's being collected, but and how can pressure be put then on the Orange County Water Board to actually have something done with that to where the remediation can be completed so something could be done with the site?
I don't have that answer. I'm not an environmental specialist when it comes to those kind of things. I think it's probably a negotiation between the water board and the expense of cleaning up and a timetable that's adopted for the cleanup of it. Probably negotiated years ago. I'm just talking out loud.
Has anybody ever inquire about purchasing that lot?
Yeah.
All
I
the
think the
time.
school
The
board
high school,
has, the
yeah.
high
Once a
school
week,
has.
someone calls me and then they figure out it's too small for whatever
Taco
it is
Bell
they want
looked
to
at
do.
it.
Del Taco was, they came up with an amazing plan for how to fit it on that lot. It's a smaller lot than any fast food restaurant's ever had, but they figured it out and then they went away. We're not sure what that is. So-
Yeah, it's, no matter what's developed there, it will become the high school drop-off zone. That's the difficult part.
That's,
Well, but it'd also be a huge destination
Right.
for the high
It
school
would.
kids,
There's
right?
lots of
So,
places,
Yeah.
and Del Taco
I mean,
saw that.
exactly.
The high school was actually in negotiations for it, and they dropped out of negotiations for it.
But the owner, it's a purchasable lot.
Yeah, the guy who owns Mr. C,
no, the other one, Rossmore Towing.
Rossmore Towing,
Yeah.
has the option. And he's had it for 22 years. Amazing story. he told.
Right.
So is
Huh.
that, you have to buy it
Interesting.
from him as
Yeah.
opposed to Texaco?
You buy it off him.
You have to purchase his option.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I hate to see what that is.
Yeah.
So can we do this? Can you do some investigation into some concepts of whether it's more feasible for us to push them to move the fence back? And if it's, the ground is safe for anything for us to do that, because I wouldn't do anything to jeopardize anyone's health. And what any other options we could have in the meantime.
Yeah, it would seem if there's no cost at the moment, there's no reason but if all of a sudden there's a cost involved in doing to try to clean it up, all of a sudden the option to sell becomes much more viable.
Right.
And the other vacant lot has sold, it sold last Thursday.
Mm.
I did hear that.
It not just entered escrow for Flag Lot, the piano lot. Not just opened escrow, not just made a deal, it closed escrow and recorded.
Cash, I'm guessing.
Actually, I don't know that part, I know the price, but I don't know.
So have they come to the city yet on
We
that?
had loose conversations with them late October, but they have not filed an application to build anything, which is rare. They usually file before they close escrow.
Right.
What lot are we talking about? Where's that?
The old
Next to the
Serpentine
plaza.
lot.
Serpentine, between Serpentine and Brigham.
The big vacant lot.
Where they wanted to put the hotel.
Sounds like he might want to build a parking garage there, and that would solve the little problem of the parking right there next door.
At the cost of the parking garage.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, he could charge.
They are expensive.
He's got enough land there, he doesn't have to build up. He could just build a parking
I
lot.
think he's putting in a skate park. No, I'm kidding.
I'm all about
Simon's
that.
good, you're a property owner. You know, get them on the hook to maintain his property. So, this is good, let's do it right though, so let's take our time to get your questions answered, and we'll come back to you. We'll also try to find a way to, I hear a consensus that you want to allow for a banner on them like they exist, or do you want that no? 'Cause I think the community really loves that banner.
Well, that's the thing, we're torn, because that one's done right, but they might not all be done right.
Right.
We got to look at how we can put it so that we can allow that banner. And people may not mind the banner
It's a
being
sign
on
code.
that.
It comes to you separately, what about that, Lisa?
Let Lisa have some ulcers over the next month figuring this one out. How we can,
But that-
it's
I mean,
nice.
if
I
you
think-
put in a silk screen or find out what technique they use on this one and put that
Yeah,
in,
that
just
one's
know
not
you
mesh.
can't control.
It's not
It's
matte, it's
solid.
solid.
No,
it's
solid.
canvas?
It's
Yeah.
vinyl.
It's like vinyl,
Vinyl.
yeah. It's really high quality.
It's a solid.
Did they
Yeah.
hand repaint it?
No, I think,
No,
don't think
it's,
so.
they just brought it and,
I think they silk
They
screen.
silk screen them.
Walked by
No,
it the other
the new
night.
version of it.
I think they
New
got a whole.
lighter version.
I think they got a whole new one.
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah, I think they replaced it.
Yeah.
Somebody,
Leone
it's got a
liked it.
slash in it too, so there's maintenance
the
too,
one
you know,
other-
they need to keep it up.
Thing I can throw in there, just to confuse everybody, is you may want a different standard on your commercial versus your residential vacant
That would be okay.
properties. I don't, and I don't
You're
know
probably not gonna
where.
want a banner on a residential.
Right, you may not want a banner or anything in your residential
Right.
areas. You may want landscaping more in your residential areas.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a distinction between the two. That's more
And that's,
And that might help.
You have the you have the residential vacant lot on Sausalito right now.
Mhm.
The old, help me.
Monty Collins.
Blue Web?
Monte Collins
Yeah.
site.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, right.
So,
And then we have vacant homes as well, but those have to be kept up to code for homes and look like an occupied home.
so we'll put this together in kind of an easier form to read, so it's not lost in a resolution. We'll just say this is what we think the guidelines should be for, commercial, industrial, residential. How's that?
Mhm.
And then we'll bring that back, we'll get the questions answered, Tom taking good notes. We'll get the questions answered regarding the environmental. I'll talk to an environmental specialist and say, hey, are they able to landscape it, or is someone at risk? If they did, and if a kid stepped on it, would they be at risk, those kind of things.
Can we also find out, like, how long the remediation period is? Because, I mean, that gas station's been gone for 25 years. It seems odd to me that you could just take as long as you want to get pollutants out of the ground.
You will see commercial buildings built on top of them with the remediation still going on, like El Pollo Loco was. It doesn't stop them from
Right.
developing it.
Sometimes.
That remediation doesn't stop them. It just takes up a portion of their
And
land.
Pollo Loco
it
was there for a
depends.
long time before that remediation happened. I mean, the remediation just happened. I was
I know.
shocked, but.
But you can build around it. There's
It
tons of sites in
depends
the
how
country.
Oh.
contaminating. Gardena, we had a site, and we finally went out to do some sort of plan to go out and do testing. as soon as they put the stuff in the soil, everything lit up, and they said, we can't even do the pilot test. It's going to release too much. So I don't know where that is at this point, but, I mean, it just depends on the level. If this is groundwater, it's different than soil.
And this isn't soil.
Yeah.
It's probably groundwater,
Yeah, it's the water table.
which, again, they just burnt, like I said, those companies come out and burn it off.
They just have to be motivated to make the investment to do it.
There is none at the moment.
Right. What, there's a weird lot, I don't even know if it's a lot, south of ABC Pools on Los Al Boulevard.
Sound.
Yeah, in between the.
Yeah, it's in between. It's like, there's a fence, it's
Oh,
kind of
yeah.
set back,
put
but
the
it's just
clothing
kind of like,
collection boxes on it.
I've kind of peeked, I've tried to peek back there. It looks
Yeah,
like there's
it's
just a
w- I
bunch of
just
junk
noticed
back
that the
there.
other day.
Is it where he has his the rental or the moving truck?
No, it's
It's like junk
grassy
behind the
lot.
fence.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm just curious what that is. It just,
Tom?
every time I walk by it, I'm like,
Yeah.
what is it? I don't know if
Is
it's a,
that the train place or the?
it doesn't look like a conforming lot. It looks small, but I really don't know.
Looked at
Probably a
it.
remnant of the train, yeah.
Yeah.
That would be part of it.
Yeah, we would have normally called them when we asked them to remove the clothing bin, but we called the clothing bin company and they were out there right away. I can't remember who.
Because if
I'm
it's
just
part
curious
of
what
the
it is and
train,
like,
Yeah.
that part
is it
was given-
is
Yeah,
it
it
buildable?
might
Is
be part
it
of the
something
rails for
you can do
before.
anything with?
Yeah, it's between the florist and that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're looking.
And it's like used as storage stuff or.
And they have a fence, but the fence is set back off
Yeah.
the sidewalk, so they got like weeds and junk, and then, and then the fence, and then behind the fence is a bunch of junk.
Set back almost the way we want to regulate vacant lots.
Right.
Yeah.
If they
They
just,
just
if they just
landscape.
beautified it right there,
Yeah.
but,
Maintain
yeah,
it.
it's- yeah.
I wonder-
Well, and there's also, at the high school, there's the sidewalk, and then there's a fence, and then there's the hill, and then there's the fence they built around their softball field, and there's that gap in between. I'm not sure if that's the high school's property.
It is the
Or-
Orange County Flood Control. It's a continuation of Coyote Creek Channel. So the slope areas around it where all the trash gets.
Yeah, and where they've got, even the posts that are holding up the fence there,
Yeah,
they're all washed
that's
out
flood
at the
control.
base.
We go out there and get to it. When I get frustrated enough, I just send my staff after. I get out to it. I've done that on Cerritos as well. You just get so frustrated, you just send your own staff out and do it.
Is that the same thing for, between the creek and,
The bike path?
not the bike path, but like the bike path where Sizzler, where that,
Yeah, that's a
Business
Southern
park is?
California Edison easement.
okay, so that,
Where all
and
the
that,
tumbleweeds are?
yeah, it's
Yeah.
just like that long
Southern
strip right there.
California Edison's land.
And it's an easement, so they just,
Yeah, you can see the overhead lines that travel
Oh, yeah.
on top of it. That's why nothing's built under it.
okay.
You see them all over you usually see landscape companies in it and plant
Yeah.
Right,
nurseries.
right.
Exactly, nurseries.
Yeah, and stables,
Horse
yeah.
stable.
So you could do something there,
You couldn't build anything.
right?
Parking.
You know the park that I saw you the other day running
Yeah.
on? That park, they wouldn't even let us put backs on the bus bench, on the benches. The benches had to be flat with no backs on it. They don't want any structures in there, because they have to get through and maintain it. You know the meandering road that's there? Notice how the tip of every curve goes and hits a pole, because they need to be able to get to that pole.
Hmm.
It's done very deliberately, so Southern California Edison could always service those poles. So we had to redesign the whole park around their ability to get to each pole. Now, maybe one day we'll get to that area. So
Yeah.
you never know.
See, we just got to get cleaned out and then put little pods in and have little gardens.
People have proposed that.
Community garden.
Yeah.
Yes, I think it would be wonderful. If we had water.
I think
Yeah.
we have enough direction to go on.
Picky, picky.
Okay?
Yeah.
Okay, so we continue this one
Yeah,
until
continue.
February
We'll come-
24th?
We'll bring some more work back to you.
This one, we could use a motion.
There's the agenda.
So I'll make a
to
motion.
continue?
I'll make a motion to continue.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, motion carries forward. Do we have any items from the Community Development Director?
Let me get you a few. I'll be right up. First of all was the close of escrow, right?
Right.
on the vacant piano lot on Los Alamitos Boulevard, which is good news. The owner has sold and closed escrow.
Right.
Is it-
Coyote Creek Gate right now is locked. We're trying to get that unlocked. They locked it because of the rain event, but they haven't unlocked it yet.
Is it public knowledge?
We
that
mentioned a certain lot line adjustment.
Actually, I don't know the entity's name that bought it. I don't know the legal name. I know the guy's names
Yeah.
individually, Narsai, but
And
doesn't mean
they've,
anything.
they've called me once a week saying they're gonna submit something next week, and they never do.
Next week and next
Yeah.
week and.
You getting your hopes up?
Yeah, yeah, it'd be fun to work.
New nail salon's opening at 11306 Los Alamitos Boulevard in the Vaughn Center. The new units on Howard are under construction. Those are 5 units that you saw. They're now under construction. Tom and I went out there on Friday to make sure he wasn't building too close to the property lines. He got his foundations poured, so we made sure we closed that loop so we didn't have any walls later we find too close to a property line. So we went out and verified that.
Lot line adjustment.
Lot line adjustment has been received for the a development in the back of Arrowhead. So Arrowhead wants to sell some of their property, and that would probably come to you at a later date. Today's not a public hearing, so we can't talk about it. Any other applications received?
No. None that are worthy of mentioning here.
A lot of miscellaneous code
Right,
enforcement
small,
issues,
very
and that's about it.
Okay, do we have any commissioner reports?
Yeah, first off, let's do race on the base. I'm already signed up.
I'm gonna do it.
What are you
Okay.
doing, Mindy?
I have to do the walk, the 5K walk.
I'm doing the try. My wife's
All
doing the
right.
try, and my daughter is probably gonna do the 5K, so. I don't know if they count in this little competition, but I have,
family member
I
credit.
have family.
Family matter
It's
credit.
not like the PTA thing, where if you
We
can get
take
everyone
whatever
from
we
the
can
house.
get.
I would, but I'm out of town.
Can you take your shoes and let, no.
You
We'll
can
hold them
volunteer on
through.
Friday night too. If you can't volunteer on Saturday.
I
you can
turned it
volunteer on
down.
Friday. Okay.
My work asked and I said no.
I'm doing 5K.
Good. What are you doing?
When is it again?
Good question. I'll have to look at my calendar.
When is it?
Somebody can run an additional
They did
5K
last
for
year.
me, that'd be all right.
I was there last year.
I'll have a hard enough time
you
making
race?
the 5K. so-
Karen and I are still
I do
talking
have some
about it.
questions regarding these pop-up little drop-off clothes boxes that are popping up on private properties
Yeah.
or anywhere all over the town. Do they require a business license, one? Are they legal, number two?
They're not allowed anywhere in the city.
Unless
Private
they-
property, otherwise.
Unless they go through the CUP process and get the permission of the property owner, which they often don't do. They actually just
Oh,
drop
really?
it
They
on
just
someone's
put it
lot.
on the,
Yeah.
And the property owner doesn't even notice.
Yeah, we've had a couple.
Are they legitimate?
They,
They're not legitimate recyclers. It's a
They're
legitimate
not
business
really
for themselves.
But they're, I mean, because they're like, don't they propose them as,
No, they
you're
don't.
talking
Read
about
it.
recycling things, or you're talking about the ones
No.
for clothes?
The
and shoes?
clothing bins,
The
shoe bins.
clothing bins.
they,
So they're taking that and then they're reselling stuff at a profit?
they are often companies that
Really?
bail up all the clothing, and they sell those bales to clothing companies that sort through them and find good stuff that they can resell for a lot of money, like on Melrose and
Oh, the
old
vintage
jeans and
vintage
things like
clothing
that.
stores.
Yeah, and a lot of it goes overseas, and one of the biggest companies for this is a Danish company that has entire stores of American clothing that they've collected through this process. So.
Wow, I had no idea.
And they sell it for a lot of money.
So if you see one, let us know.
Yeah.
We will get the property owner to remove it from their property because it's not permitted. The property owner then is ticketed if he doesn't get it taken care of. And we also have a good list of who these companies are and their emails, and we also notify them at the same time. We help the property owner
So
as
what are they
well.
doing, paying property owners to leave it there?
No, they usually don't ask
They don't
permission,
ask 'em.
but there have been cases where they'll slip a 20 to a clerk that's inside a business, say, hey, can I put this on your lot?
Is there a
And
way?
the property owner wouldn't know it.
Is there a way we can try and inform the public? I mean, because it'd be much better for people to be giving their clothes and their shoes to legitimate charitable organizations and getting a deduction or whatever than to, in my opinion, people can do whatever they want with their stuff. But, I mean, I think that's, and I think that's what a lot of people think they're
I was gonna
doing.
say, it's-
Yeah, they do.
And they're
It's
not.
very misleading, obviously.
Right.
So
They're
could-
rarely full.
Could we do a couple things then?
We have one in the back if you would like to see one.
No, I
Usually
want to
you
be
two or three.
careful that we've gone from commissioner comment to
Okay.
discussion under the Brown Act.
Okay, I have another,
But can you just put it on the, notice it? I have another question. Could you talk to the person who, two people, the owner of the property and the tenant for Kumon, about asking the families to park further away because it's going to create problems for the business now? I know I won't go over there on Tuesdays and Thursdays at all.
Where's
And
Kumon?
it's by Bonds. I don't go to
Oh.
Bonds now, I go to Seal Beach, and I don't want to go to Seal Beach, I want to go shop here in our town. But I can't park there. And I don't park close by, in most cases, I would prefer to walk, but I can't even do that. And then you have kids running around the parking lot. So it would be nice, and I know it's impacting a couple businesses, and with the new salon there, I don't know how they're going to get business on those 2 days, because there's no parking.
There is parking, it's just deeper, it's farther close to Los Al Boulevard.
Yeah, you just have to keep going further back. And you have parents that are just sitting in their cars waiting on their kids because they have nowhere to sit inside the building. They don't allow the parents in.
Naomi.
So,
and then real quick on Bloomfield, I called you about those trees, which are now gone.
Yeah, yeah,
So, which is good. Are they gonna plant something else there, or are they
yeah,
gonna?
it's less invasive.
Okay. I wasn't sure if they were gonna plant something there, or if they were gonna just
No.
sidewalk
you need
it
to
or
replant.
whatever.
You need to replant, otherwise.
That's good. Did you, I mean, you look at it, there was
You give me 3 things on my plate. I've got some others for you too.
some bad things happening there, so.
We're trying to take care of it.
Cool.
Yeah, I mean, that was obvious. We went out there the same day that
Yeah.
we reported it. The trees were leaning where a big truck could actually take a limb or two
Oh.
off, and they did. And there was about 3 or 4 trees in a row that were kind
Yeah.
of leaning.
I was in my
towards-
backyard one day, and I heard this big noise, and I looked over and saw this tree going, and I ran over there to see what I thought there was a car hit the tree, and there was no car, but there was a bunch of debris everywhere. And then same thing, probably 2 weeks later, and it must have ripped the whole side off of a truck, and that's when it was. And I looked up, and I was all, oh, geez.
That
these
was the
things
new
are-
tree trimming service they hired.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really cost.
cheap.
You guys
It's
just
really
oh my
cheap.
gosh,
fly
it's
by
fast.
and get it
Bye-bye.
done.
It wasn't. I think it was more of a truck trimming service.
Trimming service, that's what I meant.
That's good.
So-
Anything else? Okay.
Congratulations
We're
to our
adjourned.
new chair, and